Hey everyone, I'm here with Ken Rolla. Welcome, Ken.
Hi. Good to be here.
Yay! And Ken is amazing. He is a natural health educator, researcher, experimenter, the president and co-founder of freshandalive.com. But what I love the most about Ken is he really merges spirituality, energetics with the true testing of science so that it's something practical that we can use as humanity right now, transitioning to a healthier whole world. So thank you for everything you're doing, Ken.
Oh, my pleasure. Yeah, it just happens to be stuff I like to do, and so I share it with people.
Yay! I'm glad you like to do it. Today, some of our subjects, we will probably go into different veins, but we're going to be talking about the Bosnian Pyramids because I'm really interested in that and want to hear what's going on there. You just visited last year, what the energy's like. Staying healthy in a world of warfare, it's crazy toxic out there, and what we can really do to stay positive and healthy as we traverse this world right now. And then growing nutrient-dense food, and if there's any update from your extraterrestrial friends, anything that's been coming through to you on that level, we'll just explore all of those different subjects. How does that sound? Okay, cool. So starting with the Bosnian Pyramids, tell me about it.
Okay. Well, I've been following Dr. Samir Osmanagic. I butcher his last name. Osmanagic. And he is the archaeologist, the Bosnian archaeologist who discovered these pyramids in Bosnia. And they were so huge that people thought they were just mountains. And there are mountains in Bosnia that do look like pyramids. So it's understandable that people would think that because they were covered with trees and soil and grass. But it turned out these were not too far outside, maybe a half hour outside of Sarajevo, Bosnia. And he saw them and realized they were probably pyramids and started excavating them and discovered, in fact, they are. But they have different construction than most of the other pyramids that have been discovered around the world. And so that construction, along with other factors, lended itself to the mainstream archaeology community, dismissing them as actual pyramids. However, having visited there, it was very, very obvious to me. I mean, first of all, even for anybody, even an archaeologist or a layperson, with what they've uncovered there now, it's quite obvious that these are definitely constructed pyramids and not just mountains, because they're finding artifacts, they're finding walkways and plazas and structures that are obviously made by intelligent hands, as Samir says, not necessarily human, because we don't know who built them. It's such a gargantuan task. And also some of the artifacts that we're finding is kind of it would change human history if it came out. And so there are a lot of different people in the archaeology communities and professions that have agendas that are dismissing this, particularly the Egyptians and other countries where they have pyramids that get a lot of tourism. Those pyramids are attractions that draw billions of dollars to their country every year in tourism. And so, if these Bosnian pyramids are verified by the mainstream archaeology community to be legitimate pyramids, that would take billions of dollars of tourism money away from these other countries. And they seriously don't want that. So you've got this motivation by some of these officials to say that they're not pyramids so that it doesn't steal their thunder. But then you've also got a lot of confusion because these people are archaeologists and they're not trained in scalar physics, and so they don't recognize some of the structures, even if you did know anything about scalar physics, what they're discovering now has become so blatantly obvious that it was constructed. There's no way you could say that it's just naturally occurring. They've got, for example, like sidewalks that are paved with these constructed blocks that fit like a jigsaw puzzle perfectly, that spiral around these pyramids. And it's actually, I say pyramids because it's a whole complex of pyramids and cones over several miles that cover a huge area. And they also include a couple of rivers that run through it that are part of the energy system. So Samir Osmanagic started excavating these things. He found artifacts deep inside of these so-called mountains. He discovered tunnels that had been backfilled, presumably to shut down the pyramid energy for whatever reason. And so they've discovered that as they are excavating these backfilled tunnels, the tunnels, first of all, the pyramids themselves are all lined up perfectly with true north and with other objects in the area, the other pyramids in the complex. And there's a large cone called tumulus that's the size of a small mountain. The largest pyramid, they call the Pyramid of the Sun, the base of it is large enough to cover an entire city. It's huge. And the village below it, would be covered if the pyramid was moved over. So these are very, very large structures. And they're constructed more like organite than the pyramids that we're familiar with in other countries.
Oh, interesting.
Organite is material that people are making to create devices that create scalar waves for doing things like clearing chemtrails or protecting against EMF or improving sleep or other things. And basically they put out this superluminal energy, superluminal light energy that has a lot of benefits depending on how you structure it. And so these pyramids do the same thing. And we can get into the physics of it a bit. But basically, organite is a material like a non-conducting resin where you put small particles of minerals, crystals, and metals into this non-conducting resin. And then the resin will shrink and squeeze on those particulates and create scalar waves. There's several different things going on with that. But basically, it creates scalar waves. And so these large pyramids do the same thing. They discovered that the rivers in the area were mined heavily for millions of tons of river rock, and then an entire mountain was carved away. Half of a mountain was carved away to get clay to also layer these river rocks with clay. And so they basically did what Wilhelm Reich has done, where Reich back in the early 1900s was building scalar energy devices he called orgone devices that basically use layers of conductors and non-conducting materials like wool or beeswax to concentrate this scalar energy that's all around us for healing purposes. And so Reich did a lot of interesting things with that. And so it turns out that these pyramids are constructed in the exact same way, except they're carbon dating them to like 38,000 years old. So these are very, very ancient, and just the fact of their existence being so old and finding artifacts and writing and things like that inside of them, that alone will change human history. But for those people who are not familiar with how to construct scalar waves that way, they just look like a giant pile of river rocks, even though that giant pile of river rocks will not accumulate there in a perfect pyramid shape with perfect direction to due north and perfect alignment to the other pyramids and cones around it and other objects. They're finding these giant spheres, like 10, 15-foot diameter stone spheres that are perfectly round, that have been carved and they're scattered around in the land around there and all around Bosnia as well. So, and they're finding these kinds of structures inside these pyramids deep inside. So there's no way that you could say these things are just naturally occurring hills that just happen to become pyramid shaped, because they've got artifacts inside of them, and they've got artifacts on the surface of them. They have concrete. They've discovered there are these concrete slabs that are about 30 inches thick that range about 5 feet wide, about 10, 15 feet long, and they're all cast and laid out on the surface of these pyramids, perfectly aligned with each other, interlocking like a jigsaw puzzle. And the concrete itself is harder than any concrete available on Earth today.
Whoa.
And I have seen this before, because concrete, when you mix concrete up, particularly in the presence of scalar energy, it will harden a lot more hard than normal concrete. And then also concrete itself, when it's exposed to scalar waves over long periods of time, it will alter the molecular structure and make it harder. It will change the crystalline lattice of the minerals and of the compounds and make it harder. So when you're familiar with all these things the way I am, constructing these kinds of devices, it becomes blatantly obvious that these pyramids are not just natural occurring hills. They are constructed devices. There's all kinds of sacred geometry between them, and also with different points on Earth, and on and on and on. So yeah, I went there and went inside. They've got these tunnels excavated, miles of tunnels inside these things now. People are going inside of there and meditating and drinking the water. And that's another thing, the water inside these pyramids is very, very pure. The air deep down, hundreds of yards down inside these pyramids, is completely pure. They've analyzed it and shown that the air has like 23 or 24% oxygen, which is extremely pure air. No pollutants. It's extremely fresh. You can be deep down inside this thing. It's not musty or stinky or any of that. Very, very fresh. You can actually feel a breeze inside, deep down inside of these things, which I don't even know how that works. And then the water that's inside of these things, they've got places where there are actually aquifers in some of these tunnels, and people are going in there and meditating and drinking the water and getting cured of major diseases like stage 4 lung cancer and a litany of other things. I myself, I went inside the pyramids and the tunnels, meditated, which was really cool because I could see this blue light surrounding me, and there were some kinds of non-physical entities around that were like helping and healing people and stuff. And then the water itself, drinking the water, I had a lung infection that I had picked up, and I suspect I may have been targeted because when I got some analysis done, I was showing biowarfare agents in my body. And it may have just been from traveling and breathing and chemtrail stuff. But I've traveled since then, haven't had any problems. So it's kind of suspect. But anyway, normally I can get rid of stuff like that in a few days, and it just dragged on for months. I couldn't shake it. And after spending a couple of days in the pyramids meditating and drinking the water, gone. So they're discovering that these pyramids generate all sorts of energy, infrared, electrical, scalar waves. They are healing people, and so Samir jokes around that the energy cartels and drug industry and the medical industries are probably going to not like what they're discovering about these things, because basically people can build their own pyramids and do the same thing, heal themselves, create free energy, clear chemtrails, all kinds of stuff.
That's amazing. Oh my gosh, I didn't know how much healing property and how technologically different they were. What you said that they're 38,000? Is that so? What civilization do you think then created them? Because that's way older than any of the other pyramids that we know of currently that have been found. And what was its purpose? It's always usually to reflect, the heavens. But what did you pick up on about that?
Well, it's interesting because one of the interesting things that Samir does when he's going to do new digs, he'll actually call in teams of psychics and have them visualize and see what they're seeing. So there was a psychic there when I was there, and I was seeing things as well when I was meditating. What I was seeing was that it was a very, very ancient culture that was not human, but they did live on Earth, but they lived underground. And they did come to the surface, but they mostly lived underground. And they built these pyramids for, I think, several different purposes. I think part of it was for interstellar communication, because Samir and others have discovered that pyramids, particularly this large, they put out a scalar wave vortex out through the tip, and that tip's pointed out into space. And so that vortex is superluminal light, and superluminal meaning that the photonic energy that's coming out of these things travels at millions of times the speed of what we've been told is the speed of light. And so it enables energy or a signal to be transmitted across galactic distances very quickly, as opposed to even the speed of light. It could take thousands or tens of thousands of years or even more to go to far distances in our galaxy, whereas scalar waves can transmit almost instantaneously to far reaches of the galaxy. And so what I was seeing in meditations is that there are multiple purposes for these things. They've been used for communication because, for example, you can sit inside these pyramids or just be around them and meditate and focus on communicating with somebody and have that communication telepathically. So I think that it was probably a communication device. It was probably also used to generate free energy. And also the fields that surround these things, the fields are hundreds of miles around these things, and they pulse at the Schumann resonance at the frequency of the Earth, and that slows living organisms down and de-stresses them and improves their health. So whether it's microbes in the soil or plants growing or animals or people that are eating the plants or animals, all of that they're going to have more nutrients in them. They're going to be healthier and stronger because they're in proximity to these pyramids. So I think there are probably a lot of different purposes, and of course healing. People can go inside these things and get healed, or just be near them. There was a lady from Serbia who was diagnosed with stage 4 lung cancer. This was just maybe last summer, around August, September. You can see this on the Bosnian Pyramids website. Her name was Dragana, I believe, in Serbia, and she basically was told by her oncologist to go home and die. She had 30 days to live. The cancer had spread through her lungs and her body, and there was no hope for her, according to conventional medical wisdom, or lack thereof. And so she heard about the Bosnian Pyramids. She went there out of desperation, and she met Samir, and he said, well, just focus on your healing and being healthy, and go inside the pyramids and meditate. So she spent a couple hours a day meditating deep inside the tunnels and pyramids, and drinking the water, which also the water is very, very special. It's highly structured. The clustering of the water molecules is structured and patterned in a way that's very healing to the body. Minerals in the water, and probably in the air too, are very high in monatomic elements, which are extremely healing and regenerative. So she meditated a couple hours a day and drank the water for 12 days, went back to Serbia, saw her oncologist, and they said, you don't have cancer anymore. And also liver and spleen damage from the chemo and radiation that she had done also disappeared. So, this happened in the span of 12 days. So, yeah, these are the kinds of things that we can do with these pyramids. And we don't have to go to Bosnia necessarily to do it. We can build our own pyramids and do this. You don't have to build a giant pyramid. You can build a small pyramid if you do it correctly, in your backyard and sit and meditate.
Yeah. That's what I was just thinking of. It's one of those things that's an epic pilgrimage to take especially if you're over in Europe, just to go over there and experience that. And I'm adding that to my list next summer. But there's with what you're creating, people can experience some of those benefits so if you don't know, Ken's creating like these scalar energy devices. That's what he does. And I have one right here, the home rest shield. And it's really fun seeing what they're doing. I actually sprouted pecan trees, from setting it next to it, and other people I experimented. And some other people that had the same nuts that were trying to sprout them it didn't work, but the ones that I put next to this did. So talk a little bit about kind of your scalar devices and how people can translate those healing frequencies of the Bosnian pyramids into their everyday life to mute and transmute the electromagnetics and all the different things going on.
That's a really wonderful thing to talk about, because actually Samir invited me to come back to the Bosnian Pyramids in May for a private meeting with a bunch of scientists and engineers to develop technologies and teach people how to build their own technologies that will do what the Bosnian Pyramids do. So this is a very relevant topic. So with my pyramids, the rest shields, and scalar energy devices in general, what they do is put out a field. First of all, these are powered pyramids that I make. They're not just static. Normal static pyramids, if they're constructed properly, what they are stator wave antennas. The whole cosmos is this web of black holes. And it turns out that the center of our galaxy has a giant black hole. It's really a set of black hole, white hole, where on one side of the disk of the galaxy, when you look at the galaxy, it looks like this spiraling disk of planets and suns. And at the center, you've got this big black hole, which is really a superluminal sun. sometimes you'll hear channeled information or gurus and people talking about the central sun in our galaxy. Well, that's what it is. It's what mainstream scientists would call a black hole. And they recognize this. You know, this is in mainstream physics journals now. That there's a giant black hole at the center of the galaxy. But what's actually there is this superluminal sun that's emitting light that's traveling so fast that it appears black or invisible to us. And so scientists call it dark energy or dark matter or whatever. But what's really happening is this energy is flowing out of the center of our galaxy and all galaxies, and it's spiraling as it goes, and it branches as it goes, and it's relayed from sun to sun to sun outward through the galaxy, because it's been discovered by people like Nassim Haramein and others that suns and planets have at their centers black holes as well. These singularities that act as a relay portal for this superluminal energy, this scalar energy, to be relayed. And so this energy is coming from the center of the galaxy. It's bouncing from sun to sun to sun outward. It gets to us from our sun, and it comes down to the earth from our sun, and it's coming up from the center of the earth, from the singularity at the center of the earth. And then these pyramids capture that energy and broadcast in the local field. And so if they're constructed with the right dimensions and the right materials, that energy will be very beneficial to living organisms. And so it turns out that all these pyramids that have been found around the world, they are constructed in that way. They're made out of stone that's high in monoatomic elements hiding within it. And those monoatomics create what scientists call the piezoelectric effect, which is well known but not understood. And these monoatomics, because they're superconducting in certain conditions, they create this piezoelectric effect, which can create electricity if you strike one of these stones. But also, if you squeeze on the stone, it will emit scalar waves. And actually, stones in general emit scalar waves all the time anyway. But they do it much more strongly when they're being squeezed. And then if you structure them in the shape of a pyramid, it will strengthen that even more. And so these pyramids that I make, they are a combination of that pyramid concept combined with a whole lot of different minerals. I think we put about 18 different crystalline minerals in there. They're high in monoatomics. And then we put some macro crystals in there like quartz and amethyst and kyanite and selenite. And then it also has an electronic circuit that generates scalar waves of certain frequencies. And so that's being pulsed through an antenna that mimics the structure of DNA, and that's embedded inside this pyramid. And then the whole thing, the circuit overall, pulses at the original 7.83 hertz Schumann resonance, which is a pulsing that's supposed to be in the Earth's atmosphere, but right now it's accelerated to anywhere from 4 or 5 times that, sometimes even more. And so that, at a cellular level, it's stressing people. When you put them back in the original 7.83 hertz frequency, or any living organism for that matter, de-stresses them and they function better, they grow better, etc. So with plants, plants actually are energy to matter converters. We humans and animals, we are matter to energy converters. We eat matter and convert it into energy to utilize. The plants do the opposite. They take scalar energy and sunlight and a few gases and some minerals, but predominantly it's scalar energy, and they convert it directly into matter. So if you've got a plant growing close to one of my devices, or a pyramid, you will see radically improved growth and vitality and nutrient levels in the plant. Same thing with microbes. If you're doing fermented foods, you can feed them, for example, volcanic rock powders that are high in monoatomics, and then put them in a scalar field, and that will radically increase their production and the nutrients that they produce. We've seen with the rest shield pyramid, I've done experiments with plants and ferments and different things with them. But we've also seen people, for example, one lady in Florida here took a avocado seed, put it in a glass of water, and set it next to the pyramid, went away for 2 weeks on vacation, came back, and the seed had turned into a 2-foot tall plant. But the interesting thing was the water level in the glass didn't go down at all.
Wow.
And so the plant didn't use the water, and it didn't even evaporate, which is, I find, really bizarre. But it's because these plants can take scalar energy directly and convert it directly into the matter that they're composed of. And you actually see examples of this in nature. For example, in Hawaii, you see this quite a bit. When there's a lava flow and that lava cools down and turns into solid rock, you'll see plants growing directly off solid lava rock.
It's amazing. Coconut trees just like sprouting out, and it's like, how does it do that?
The way it's doing that is it's feeding directly off the massive amount of scalar energy coming off of that volcanic rock, because it turns out volcanic rock is very high in monoatomic elements, and so it emits a very strong scalar field that's natural and has frequencies that are very beneficial to living organisms. So those plants just feed off of it directly and convert it directly into matter, and they don't need water and soil. That's how it works. So there's a lot of really cool things you can do with this if you understand these basic concepts.
It's amazing, and I've seen it real time, and I am a junkie for sacred scalar sites like Sedona or these different places that have these energies going. That's how I actually like stay vital, is by being in these places. But what are some ways that people can, accessing, making their own pyramids, getting the access to say what you make, but getting into that field, so clearing out the body, so how really to stay healthy in this biowarfare world, and like the geoengineering and all that stuff, because there's a lot, against us, but there's a lot of support. So what are some ways just on detoxing the body and getting us prepared to really like get these energetic upgrades?
There are tons of things that we can do to maintain our health and happiness and abundance with this stuff in so many ways, and we'll get into the specifics of it. For health, for example, you can build these pyramids, put them in your backyard, and you don't have to build giant pyramids. You can build little 6-inch pyramids. I teach this, and if people go to my blog at freshandaliveblog.com, I have videos talking about this and giving out construction techniques. You can build little 6-inch organized pyramids. If you build them properly, you can put maybe 5 to 7 of them outdoors, and you can clear a 50-mile diameter of air pollution, whether it's chemtrailing or geoengineering, if you want to call it that, or good old-fashioned air pollution, or whatever, smog, all that. It'll clear it. And when you clear that pollution out of the atmosphere, that will balance the electric charge in the atmosphere, and then you'll get normal weather for your area. With all these particulates and pollutants in the atmosphere, that throws off the charge in the atmosphere, and then you get severe weather of all kinds: droughts, fires, floods, hurricanes, tornadoes, all that kind of stuff. That's the earth trying to clean itself. And so if the atmosphere is already clean and the charge is balanced, then you don't get severe weather. You just get normal weather for your area. So that's one major thing that people can do for themselves. I also manufacture a powered scalar wave generator for outdoors that will do that, clear a 75-mile radius. In that case, it doesn't drop it down to the ground. It sends those pollutants out into space so they don't come back down on you. And we found here in Florida, for example, on the east coast of Florida, I've got these devices all along the east coast, and we see when hurricanes come through, they don't come within the range of these devices. They stay offshore, or they go west of us, and they don't do the damage that they normally would. And very often they will come up and just fall apart and weaken and bounce off and go out to sea, rather than hitting and tearing up the main Florida. So that's something that people can do themselves with orgonite and building pyramids and those kinds of things. Then that will keep the stuff from coming down on you, like Fukushima fallout. That's coming down on all of us unless you're doing these things to clear the sky. So you can keep this stuff from coming down on you, first of all. Then you can use microbes, like effective microorganisms. We sell it on our website. They're really cheap, like $24 for a quart. And these are probiotic, a liquid probiotic. You can ingest it, and that will help break down toxins in the body. But you can also brew this stuff by mixing the microbe mixture with molasses and water, and you can ferment gallons and gallons of this stuff, which is diluted thousands of parts of the culture to one part, thousands of parts of water to one part of this microbe culture. And you can make your own medicines. You can detoxify your yard and your garden and plants and everything else, because you can spray this stuff outdoors or indoors, non-toxic, and it will break toxins down into non-toxic elements. It also will break down minerals into small particles that plants can uptake. And so you can make your own plant foods by taking volcanic rock powders, for example, and fermenting them with this stuff, and then feeding that to your plants or fertilizing your garden with that, and get massive amounts of produce with much, much higher nutrient levels in them. And then within the body itself, there's a lot of things you can do to keep these toxins out of your body, whether it's geoengineering pollutants or nuclear fallout. And people are getting nuclear fallout in their food and water. There was a study done in Pennsylvania showing that there was high levels of cesium-137 in the water supplies up there, and they directly attributed it to Fukushima. And before that, Chernobyl. These microbes will break that stuff down in the environment, but also in your body, it will do that as well.
And how much do you take of that? Because I know that Patrick Flanagan was talking about how pretty much every area on Earth now has some radioactive level from, so it's like you can't hide from it necessarily, but what levels would you intake, to keep that at a level?
Normally, like if you read the bottle, it'll say, a tablespoon or two, a few times a day. But the cool thing is if you're brewing your own and you get gallons of it, you can be guzzling it. You can't overdose on it. It's probiotic. So you could drink a quarter cup of it or a half cup of it a day if you wanted to, and very, very affordably. Microbes and the biome inside the gut are extremely important for human health. And the biome in your gut really dictates a lot of your health. It also dictates what kinds of foods you desire and crave. So if you're used to eating carbs and sugar and junk, you're going to foster microbes in the gut. They're going to emit chemistry that will make you crave more of the junk that you're feeding them. Whereas if you ingest probiotics and eat a healthy, at least mostly living foods diet, all organic, that kind of thing, then and you're taking probiotics, then what that will do is foster a bacteria flora in your gut that will make you crave healthy stuff. And so when I used to work with individuals doing consults, and I would tell them this and get them on these probiotics and detox programs and diet and stuff. And I would tell them, it's like, if you do this, you come back in a year's time, you'll be craving salads and green drinks. And they were always flabbergasted when they would come back and say, like, I can't believe it, you're right, I'm craving greens and salads and healthy stuff. So that's an important thing. Taking probiotics, taking big doses of enzymes, which again, if you make fermented foods and these ferments with EM and other things, you can have a high enzyme content in foods and superfoods that you can grow yourself. And then you can also sprout and grow food. Even if you're in a high rise in Manhattan, you can grow sprouts. I mean, Steve Meyerowitz, the late Steve Meyerowitz, the sprout man, proved this. He was living in Manhattan. He was growing massive quantities of sprouts, so much so that he started a business selling it to other people in a Manhattan apartment. So you can grow massive amounts of food indoors with these growing techniques. And then if you understand monoatomic elements, you can take products like MyGrow Minerals, which is a monoatomic mineral supplement, and you can feed that to your sprouts and your plants. You can foliar feed them, you can root feed them, and you will get massive amounts of growth and nutrient levels and not some kind of chemical abomination, because you're basically doing what nature does, you're just doing more of it. And so you can get denser nutrients in the body to build your immune system and keep it strong. Then you use probiotics and enzymes combined with vitamins and minerals and all of this stuff, and with superfoods and certain supplements if you're deficient, to keep the immune system strong. And then you've got to detox on a daily basis. Because this stuff is so pervasive in our environments now, it's in our food, it's in our water. We've got nuclear fallout coming down on our food. And I know this personally because 3 times now I've gotten radiation poisoning from healthy food. Some of it I was growing myself, and I don't know if the hot particles that I ingested were on stuff I was growing, or if it was from produce coming from California or what. But 3 times I've gotten hot particles on my food and got very, very sick. And I had to figure out how to neutralize radiation in the body and pull it out. So the way that you do that is a combination of things. You can use these scalar energy devices that fall under the general category of quantum biofeedback devices, like the QXCI SCIO, or the newer version of that called the indigo, or the newer version of that called the Eductor, or the Life system, LIFE system. There are other ones out there, but these are very complex scalar devices that you can get connected to, and they can read the energetic signature of the body, the scalar energetic signature of the body, and they can see what's going on in great detail, what's in the body, and then it can send in scalar frequencies back into the body to help heal things. And I discovered that these devices, particularly the SCIO and the indigo and the Eductor, they can actually neutralize radioactivity in the body. And I know this for a fact because I had it done with me. When I got radiation poisoning the first time, it took me about 10 days to heal it. And, I ate this huge, really healthy sprout salad. My wife had the same salad, and she had no problem. But I got really sick after about an hour, and my gut started burning, and it felt really, really weird, and it felt very serious. And I knew that it wasn't just some, bug or something, but I didn't know what it was, and I didn't suspect radioactivity. And so the next day, this was on a Sunday, the next day I contacted my SCIO practitioner to get a session, and she couldn't see me for about 5 days. Well, it got worse and worse. And I got really concerned, and I even considered going to a hospital, which for me is total anathema. I would never do that unless it was, like a last resort.
Right.
But it just so happens, it was a big spirit trip, really, because what I discovered, I was testing a zeolite supplement called Advanced TRS. It's by a company called Cosiva. And zeolites are a mineral that's formed when lava hits water, either ocean water or underground water, and it shocks it, and it creates these little cage structures in the minerals at the molecular level. They're like little geodesic balls, and these geodesic balls have a very strong negative charge in them. And so when you ingest them, if you grind them up really fine and you ingest them, they will actually go into the body, and they will attach to anything with a positive charge on them, which so happens free radicals, pathogenic bacteria and viruses, and toxins all have positive charges. So it's a way to selectively pull these toxins and pathogens out of the body without harming the beneficial bacteria or other structures in the body. So I was testing this particular type of zeolite. Was very different because the man who developed it figured out a way to use vitamin C to break those cages down into individual cages, rather than normally one particle of these zeolites will have thousands of cages in one particle. But he figured out how to break it down into individual cages using vitamin C. So what winds up happening is the particles are so small they can go anywhere in the body that water can go. So they can go into the brain, for example, and pull out heavy metals or radioactive elements or whatever. And so the radioactive elements that are below uranium on the periodic chart, those elements are small enough that they can circulate around in the body. So those zeolites will pull them out. So will clays. Clays like bentonite clay or sacred clay and others, morlanite clay, those can grab onto these radioactive elements and other toxins and pull them out of the GI tract. But they can't get into other parts of the body very well. These nanozeolites can. So I use a combination of the nanozeolites, clays, food-grade charcoal that will pull stuff out of the gut, and particularly also what are called the transuranic elements, the radioactive elements and isotopes above uranium on the periodic chart. Those particle sizes are so large, they won't circulate through the body, but zeolites can't latch onto them. So clays and charcoal are very important, and other absorbers like that, like plant-based absorbers, are very important for grabbing those and pulling them out of the gut. So in my case, I had been testing these nanozeolites for a few weeks. I had them in my body, and so fortunately, they pulled the radioactive elements out of my guts, apparently, because by the time I went and got testing, it was showing alpha, beta, and gamma radiation damage in my guts, but it was not showing any hot particles. And so then I got zapped by the SCIO, and in 3 hours, man, it was like gone. Wow. I felt right as rain. And
That's
then a few years
awesome.
later, I just happened to get a call from Dr. Gabriel Cousins at the Tree of Life Rejuvenation Center, and he tells me about this supplement that he had that's called, we have it now, it's called Rad Zero. And that stuff is an Ormus water that's been zapped with the scalar anti-frequencies of all known radioactive elements. And he said that was the only thing in their testing that they found that would neutralize all radioactivity in the body.
Wow.
So now we've got these things in our arsenal to protect us from radioactivity and nanoparticles in these geoengineering pollutants and all this other stuff. These cross-domain organisms, these genetically engineered crosses between bacteria and fungi that are showing up in the atmosphere and probably in these chemtrails. The Carnicom Institute and other people are showing, what's in this nasty mix that's coming down on us.
And so the question, I have a question on that. For specifically chemtrails, what would you do? And then, do you know NCD? It's like one of those zeolites that is more water soluble. What do you think of that one particularly?
Yeah, NCD, Natural Cellular Defense, I used to use years ago from a company called Leora. And there are certain things that I can't say about it because I could get sued, but let me just put it to you this way. I don't use them anymore, and I don't recommend them anymore. They may have resolved the issues that I had with them, but basically there are other products now that work better than that. So Natural Cellular Defense I no longer use. I use a combination of the Cosiva Advanced TRS nano zeolites, and then I also use powdered zeolites from a company called Health Gems, which we're going to be bringing out on our website as well.
Nice.
So that will get chemtrail stuff out of the body. Clays, charcoals, herbs, living food, juice, all of that, we'll pull these out. And this is what we've got to be doing on a daily basis. I make a cocktail every day of superfoods and nutrients and detoxifiers, things like blue-green algae, which detoxify the body, but they also create stem cells and they feed the brain, they improve brain function and memory. And so I make this whole cocktail of things, B vitamins. I take a vitamin mineral complex called Intramax. I take electrolytes. I use azomite rock powder. And very often I will make ferments where I will take the effective microorganisms and I'll throw in maybe like 20, 25 different herbs. I will throw in rock powders like azomite, rhyolite, Redmond minerals, concentrates, liquid sea minerals, and I'll throw all that into a ferment it for 3 or 4 months. Also turmeric, I throw in a lot of turmeric because that's a really massive antioxidant, but it's not very bioavailable unless you ferment it. So I make this whole concoction of stuff that I can then guzzle every day, and I don't have to spend tons of money on supplements either.
Yeah.
So, I teach people how to do that. For folks that are interested in the specifics of that, you can go to my blog, and I've got videos talking about that. Also, for people interested in making those brews, I have the instructions on my website on a hidden page that you can download and get the brewing instructions. It gives you all the information you need. And that link is downloads, with an S, downloads.freshandalive.com. So you go there and you can download my instructions on making your own probiotic.
Nice.
So you can make your own probiotic in about 3 weeks, or you can add herbs and rock powders and stuff and wait 3 or 4 months, and then you've got your own custom tailored medicines. And so, and if you want to tailor specific things, just go to herb companies' websites. Like we sell Dr. Morse's herbal extracts, and there are others like Gaia Herbs or Blessed Herbs. There's a bunch of good ones out there, Christopher's. Go to their websites and look at what their formulas are and what herbs they have in their blends for different issues. And then you can just buy those herbs in dry organic powdered form from places like mountainroseherbs.com or Frontier Herbs. And you can buy those very inexpensively and then ferment those into your ferment and custom tailor your own medicine for you. So you can do anything from curing baldness to wrinkles or gray hair or whatever, it's like, or cancer, you name it.
That's awesome. And where are you at with the blue-green algae on, because I remember last time we talked, Klamath Lake didn't have radioactivity, or which one do you suggest?
Well, they still test their batches of algae, and And they say that there's no toxins in it. I don't know if they would, if they discover radioactivity in their algae, I don't know if they would be truthful about it or not, because it would probably destroy their company. But on the other hand, the algae itself, it eats volcanic ash in those lakes, and it will break down toxins.
Right.
And then also the mountains surrounding Klamath Lake, they're volcanoes. They're extinct volcanoes. And so those volcanoes are creating scalar vortices that go up in the atmosphere and do what I was talking about earlier that pyramids and orgonite does. It creates a vortex that clears the atmosphere. So I suspect that the atmosphere and the water in those areas is still pretty clean because of the vortexing action of those mountains.
Nice.
But I have not tested it recently to know for a fact.
Yeah.
It's kind of expensive to do that.
Yeah. And what about where are you at with mycelium and mushrooms? How do you implement those, and how does that interplay?
Yeah, I've always been a big fan of mushrooms and fungus, and Paul Stamets' work at fungi.com. What mushrooms and fungus do, they're like all microbes and pathogens and molds and fungi. They all break down toxins in the environment. That's their job. They're kind of like nature's garbage collectors. They will break down pollutants and toxins, including radioactive elements, and break them into non-toxic elements. And this has actually been proven in Fukushima City. People can go to the resources page on my website, or they can just go directly to radiationlinks.freshandalive.com. And you scroll down about two-thirds of the way down that page, there's a YouTube video of a farmer in Japan, in Fukushima City, who's using EM, the effective microorganisms, on his crops. And he's had the government test it. No detectable radioactivity on his soil or his crops. He's able to sell his crops normally when all the farmers around him are massively radioactive. So this is the kind of stuff that we can do for ourselves to keep all of this stuff out of our bodies, off our land, and out of our atmosphere.
And where would you say people start? Because there's a lot. And I've transitioned a lot of what I've done, and it still takes time to kind of get the systems in place and get everything going. What would be top 3 things out of everything that you said to start right now that people could do?
Okay, well, the number one top thing is at least 80% living foods diet, high in chlorophyll, and watching your food combine. Not combining foods that digest fast, like sugars and starches, with foods that digest slow, like nuts and seeds and proteins and greens. So there's plenty of information on the internet. Hippocrates Health Institute, Gabriel Cousins, people like that, they teach about proper food combining. So a properly combined living foods diet, high in chlorophyll, juicing, green drinks, not lots of sugar and fruit, but lots of chlorophyll and green drinks. You can make green drinks with a base of cucumber and celery and add things into it. Those are important. And then doing nutrient detox tonics on a daily basis. I throw in, like I say, I'll make a tea with Dr. Morris's Heal All Tea, and I'll throw in blue-green algae. I also will grow and juice wheatgrass. And of course, we're growing our own sprouts and things, so we're growing a lot of our own food. Food is the number one, juicing, and then daily detoxing. I would definitely be taking the nanozeolites or some kind of zeolites, clays, charcoal, to keep this stuff out of you on a daily basis. Probiotics, enzymes. Everybody always needs to be taking probiotics, enzymes, vitamins, and minerals, because those 4 food-based format are needed. They're each needed to metabolize the other. So living food and food-based supplements are the way that you get those in the proper ratios to each other. Now, a lot of people are deficient and have deficiencies as well as toxicities. So I always recommend getting testing to find out what you're deficient in. Hair analysis from, for example, analytical research labs in Phoenix. That's a simple thing you can do, and you can find out if you're deficient or if you've got heavy metals. Live food. Also, I would take the Rad Zero on a daily basis, or at least take that for maybe 2 or 3 bottles of that stuff, and then it will last. It will keep protecting you unless you get exposed to high levels of radiation, for example, when you go flying or if you're around some kind of nuclear activity. But it's really, there are a lot of different things, but basically detoxifiers on a daily basis and live food, those are the main
things. Yay! That sounds great. I'm excited I'm doing a lot of fermenting now, but I want to get more wild with it, with the rock powders and extra herby and get that stuff going. On the subject of your extraterrestrial friends, any downloads, information coming through lately from them, any interactions that are significant going on?
Yeah, these days, because back in the day, maybe 20, 25 years ago, when I was starting to really consciously realize what was going on, having contact, it was much more overt. And I've had contact my entire life, even when I was a little kid. But when I was little, it was couched in visuals, usually in the dream state, or, it would be when I go to bed and wind up, waking up, but still think I was dreaming. But it was couched in visuals, so I wouldn't be afraid. So I wasn't seeing what was really going on. I was kind of seeing representations of things and getting downloads of information and stuff. And then in my 20s, I started I got exposed to the concept of channeling, so I started thinking, I wonder if all these crazy ideas and stuff coming in are coming from somewhere else, not just from my own mind. And so I started interacting with it as if it was a third party, and that's when they identified themselves as extraterrestrial. And so, I said to them, well, if you're really extraterrestrial and this isn't all in my mind, I have to meet you physically. So in 1995, I did wind up encountering 3 reptilians, very, very large reptilians, out in the woods in North Carolina at a very special power place. And I had a witness with me to confirm that I wasn't just like hallucinating. And so since then, it has become less and less overt because I don't need to prove to myself that I'm actually having this contact. And of course, I've been given so much information ever since as well, particularly about day-to-day living, not even this pie in the sky stuff, but just day-to-day living and how to be a human being. It has been very, very beneficial. So I've learned to trust this. And so I'm constantly getting information and downloads and stuff all the time about various things. Lately, the things I've been getting information on is, for example, where blockchain technology is going to go. Because people hear about Bitcoin and these blockchain currencies, these cryptocurrencies that could enable us to be able to transact financially directly between each other and bypass banks and financial institutions and basically the controllers of this planet. The way that we're all controlled is through the monetary systems and through the energy systems and food supply and those kinds of things. So what I've been being shown is that these blockchain technologies will allow not just us to bypass the financial control of this planet, but also allow us to create an internet, for example, that is not censored and not centralized with internet service providers and search engines like Google that filter everything, that kind of stuff. That was going to be one of the major keys toward freeing humanity and allowing us to be in charge simply by us not participating in these old paradigms. And so that's one thing I'm very excited about. People right now are not using these cryptocurrencies really as currencies. They're using them like investments. Bitcoin, last I checked, it had dropped precipitously from $20,000 per coin down to around $7,700, I think, which is still a lot of money for one coin. But because the value of it keeps going up and up, the variations are very wide, but overall it's been going up. And so because of that, so far people are not using them as actual currencies, they're using them as investments. But we're going to see the emergence of actual currencies that people will start increasingly accepting. And so as that gains momentum and mainstream population starts accepting these cryptocurrencies, I think what you're going to see is not just a particular cryptocurrency emerging, but a whole litany of cryptocurrencies that have special uses. And if you look at the work of Stephen Belgian, who wrote a book called New Money for a New World, he was an economist who worked with the International Monetary Fund, and he studied history and found that when we had extended periods over hundreds of years of massive prosperity in different cultures around the world, it was always when they had multiple currencies and specialty currencies, and people were penalized for holding on to money and saving money. They were actually rewarded for putting money into circulation and using money. And so these cryptocurrencies and the blockchain technology, eventually when they become used as actual currencies, you're going to see multiple currencies. People are going to just kind of pick and choose what works best for them for their particular applications. So you're going to see this melding of the combination of having multiple specialty currencies that don't have a middleman and don't have an intermediary that's charging you and taxing you on it. Even though, of course, the IRS and all these entities are trying to figure out how to do that. And it's going to free humanity massively. So that's one of the things that I've been being shown. And I'm very, very optimistic about the future because, there are all kinds of stories about what's going on behind the scenes with Trump and people being arrested and this and that and the other. I have no validation that that's really occurring. It seems to be. Certainly some things seem to be getting better. But even if that isn't the case, if you look at the technologies, for example, that are starting to come out onto the market, I just found out that Martin Luther King III, who I worked with, he is actually on the board of a free energy company that's getting ready to release some free energy technologies. I saw another company out in California that's getting ready to massively release free energy technology, and even mainstream media is talking about it. So, I don't think that these technologies are going to continue to be able to be suppressed because the people that have been suppressing them are losing their power. They're being attacked and shut down and having their money taken from them. They're being arrested. I don't know if you know this, but Trump enacted an executive order on December 22nd declaring anyone involved in human rights abuses or corruption around the world, that the United States would sanction them via economic sanctions, taking their assets and arresting them. And apparently that's been going on. And then also a week later, he wrote another executive order making January anti-slavery and human trafficking month. And so you see now all these pedophiles that are being arrested, and there are people predicting that there's going to be way, way more of that going on, where potentially a third of Congress could be hauled away in handcuffs. So these are the kinds of things that I'm kind of being shown behind the scenes, along with, personally I've been directed to work more with pyramid energy because this is something that people can build themselves very simply and have really profound results and protect themselves. So those are some of the areas that I've been being led to. And I'm always getting little bits and pieces of things, usually it's funny, but usually it's like either when I'm bathing or using a bathroom or something, it's one of the few times when I slow down enough and I'm not focused on things in 3D where they can come in and say, hey, look at this.
Totally.
Or when if I meditate, I'll get, stuff will come into it.
Yeah.
But those are some of the things I've been seeing lately.
That's great. Yeah, I'm totally with you on the transition of the full monetary system. It's changing, and like the availability of smart contracts and true transparency using technology. I just think that it's just, and the momentum, the infrastructure is there. It's like build the new system and they will come, and it's just the beginning. Like it's just, I think it's less than 3% of, it's less than 2% of America. I think it's like 1.5% of America, according to Clippi, is actually in cryptocurrency, and then it's less than 3% of the world. So it's the beginning, but the infrastructure is there, and because it's so synced with the way that the world needs to evolve, I just think it'll expand. And even just as you were talking, thinking about all of this in connection to the Bosnian Pyramids, like unearthing and like being seen, it's like that level of technology, which is free energy and all these different things, and cleaning up the air. It's symbolic, right? That's like coming to light right now.
Exactly. And, you know, if we have, for example, a search engine that uses blockchain technology, it's decentralized, then it can look at anyone who's hosting one of these can be looking at all of the data on the entire internet and providing access to people to it. And that can't be stopped, because just like with, you know, Bitcoin and these cryptocurrencies, what makes them unstoppable, it's kind of like whack-a-mole for the agencies trying to stop it. Like the NSA, for example, they've always written hooks into encryption algorithms and software that are being utilized in these things. And they've probably got hooks. Well, it's been kind of shown now that they've got hooks in Bitcoin and cryptocurrency algorithms in general. And then the IRS also trying to control it, but they're going to fail ultimately, because it's like whack-a-mole. You know, they can try and shut down this server, that server, whatever, but there's so many people all across the world that are hosting these blockchain servers. They're dishing up the data and mining it and analyzing it, that they will not be able to stop it. Once people get familiar and understand the concept, there are people working on another internet, a new internet, that will be blockchain based, that will not be controlled and manipulated. And so you start seeing those kinds of technologies. It's just like when Google came out. I remember the days when there was no Google. I remember when there was no internet, and then the internet was new, and the search engines were lousy, and you couldn't find anything. You could spend hours and hours looking for something, and now it's easy, right? Even though it is being filtered and censored. Well, the same thing's going to happen with these blockchain technologies. In the beginning, you know, it's going to be early adopter things. But eventually, when the mainstream starts jumping on and business gets involved and starts hosting these things, it's not going to be able to be stopped. So you're going to see, I think, in the next 5 years, some really radical changes in society. We're coming to the end of an 80-year cycle of technological paradigm. And it's about every 80 years, which is the approximate life of a human being, that we have these technological paradigm shifts. And the last one occurred in the early 1900s with the invention of the automobile and the internal combustion engine and flight and those kinds of things. And so now we're going to see it with free energy, we're going to see it with blockchain technology, communications, scalar technology, and lots of other things that we can't even predict yet. And it's going to radically change the world for the better. But at the same time, the people who are trying to hang on to the old paradigms, those are the ones that will suffer, as they always have throughout history. You know, when you look at when paradigm changes occur, people that are trying to hang on to the old paradigm, those are always the ones that suffer. And so you already see that with people now, folks trying to hang on to this old medical paradigm of drugs and surgery and, you know, all of that nonsense, and eating GMO food and all that kind of crap. They're all dying and suffering. And so they're either going to have to wake up or they're going to die off. And so as with any paradigm shift, it's the people who are awake and aware and progressive with their lives and that adopt these things in a way that's empowering and not enslaving. Those are people going to be abundant and have a great time.
Totally. And it's on all levels. That's the amazing thing, is like, I just asked you the question and I didn't know that you were going to talk about cryptocurrency, but that's like the exact kind of like that technology is like the downloads that I'm getting. And it's like everyone's getting these initial groundings and information so that we can understand it, so that when more people come over to it, we can then explain it and share it. And so it's neat to see it in all categories, whether it's health, consciousness, technology, economy. It's all moving, and I love just hearing, your perspective on all of this and how you do see it changing and how it is getting better and better every day.
Yeah, well, I mean, think about it this way. You know, imagine if people listening to this and other talks that I'm doing, Samiros, Monogich, and others are doing about pyramids. Thousands of years ago, societies all across the globe built pyramids, and not just the big, huge ones. Lots and lots of people in these societies built and used pyramids. And the more and more that our societies get back to doing that, the less people are going to need the medical paradigm. And then the more they're going to be able to grow massive nutrient-dense food and superfoods and those kinds of things. So these simple things that we can do, the most high-tech stuff looks like low tech. And the great thing is anybody can do it. And so this is where way showers like you, me, and others, we do it, we figure it out, we show that it actually works. Other people start jumping on it. Before long, you've got more and more people doing this. And then it will roll into business, where people start creating businesses using these technologies and paradigms. And that's when it's all over. The old paradigm's gone and you've got a whole new reality. So I'm very optimistic about where we're headed.
I love it. I love it. Is there anything else you want to share? And also, you're going to start doing many more YouTube videos and disseminating even more of your information of what you bring through. So if you could share any last thoughts, as well as how people can find you, and I'll definitely put most of the links you've talked about in the description so people can go find them there.
Yeah, I'm actually in the process of converting this office here into a YouTube studio, and I'm also expanding my manufacturing facility. I'll probably have a YouTube studio over there as well, so that I can be online accessible and be able to whip out short videos much more frequently, and then also give people access to me through live webinars like this. We can make this live. And so I'm going to be doing a lot more live webinars so that people all around the world can ask me questions, and I can do trainings and teach people how to do these things, because there's only so much of me. And also, I don't travel as much as I used to. I'm too busy to do as much traveling as I used to, and I honestly don't like doing a lot of traveling because there's so much radiation in the atmosphere. There's so many GMO bugs and stuff. It's like I really have to, do a lot to protect myself so that I don't get sick when I'm traveling. And then, of course, food. I mean, it's like when you're traveling. Like I was in Bosnia and Croatia for 2 weeks.
Yeah, I was going to ask, is there food there? I'm like, okay, there's water. Check. But, like, is there food?
Well, the good thing is both Croatia and Bosnia do not allow GMO food. So you can go around in restaurants and eat non-GMO food. That's the good news. The bad news is, particularly for a live foodist, there's not much live food around, even in the summertime. Like you go into grocery stores, and they may only have 10 or 12 different types of produce. And so you have to find farmers markets to find a better variety of food. So if anybody is thinking about going to Bosnia, and I would definitely go to Bosnia and Croatia. They're just amazingly, amazingly beautiful countries, wonderful people, and the wars that have been there are behind them, at least for the time being, probably for quite a while. And so it's it's stable. It's not like dangerous to travel there or anything like that. But you can find a lot of good food in farmers markets. I recommend people go and stay in Airbnbs, and find out where you can use, like, for example, happycow.net to find vegan and vegetarian friendly restaurants in the area. You can find farmers markets and that kind of stuff. But yeah, so I'm going to be doing a lot more stuff online just because I'm not going to be traveling as much. And a lot of my travel is going to be private because I work on things behind the scenes that I can't go public with if you get me in trouble. I will be in France and probably Spain next September. So folks in Europe, if anybody in Europe is watching this, I will be in Toulouse, France for sure in September. And I'll get that posted on my website soon, speaking at a conference there. For folks that want to get in touch with me, I don't do private consults. I don't have any time to do that, unfortunately. But you can always go to freshandalive.com to get in touch with me. I'm also on Facebook. If you want to learn about some of these things I'm talking and teaching about, you can go to my blog at freshandaliveblog.com. And unfortunately, I get so many messages on Facebook, I just don't have time to read them all. I do my best to respond to the ones I can, but I just get crazy amounts, and I just can't handle it all. So the best way to get in touch with me, get on my mailing list, and then when I do a webinar, you can ask me questions directly if you want to do that.
Yeah, and you're great at that in person. That's where I met you in Sedona, and you were just like, you were there, and when you're there in person, you answer the questions, and in the meantime, you're like, I'm busy creating.
Well, I enjoy spending time with people, too. I enjoy talking with people. Normally my schedule, I have so many things demanding my time, I don't have the opportunity to. But when I'm at an event, my philosophy is, like, people are spending all this money to come there. I should be available for them as much as possible. So I like going to dinner with people and hanging out and talking and all that kind of stuff. So normally if I do go to an event, people can, they can spend quite a bit of time with me if they want to.
Awesome. Well, there's lots of Europeans that watch this channel, so I'm sure that they'll come see you in person. Yeah, go Europe. Awesome. Well, thank you so much for being on this call. I know that you're very busy, but I think we got a lot of great information out there so that people can continue this wave of transformation in a healthy way, and really looking forward to all the amazing stuff on the horizon.
Yeah, like I say, people can always email questions through my website, and I will do YouTube videos on them. I'll answer them. So that's another way of, interacting, sort of indirectly.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Ken. And to everyone who's watching, thank you so much for watching. And of course, like, comment, subscribe, assist the YouTube algorithm so that content like this will appear until we get the blockchain search engine that isn't monitored. So for now, thank you so much, and I'll see you next week with another video.